What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue and I hope you're all doing well today. With one Mythic Plus build already done, here is episode 2 of our Talent Build mini-series. This time we'll be covering the Hidden Opportunity Shadow Dance build, a very popular choice that gives Outlaw access to a very different playstyle than most of us are probably used to from our swashbuckling pirate spec. As I did with the previous video, this one will be segmented into various talking points as well as explanations and overviews of talents, the rotation, pros, cons, and a little bit of my personal stance on this setup. As a word of caution, this is considered an intermediate guide, so it's expected you'll already have a moderate knowledge of the new talent system and how Outlaw works at least from a basic level. This build, as of this video being published, is seen as the strongest throughput choice, generally simming a couple percent higher than the Echoing Reprimand Keep It Rolling build in Dungeon Slice calculations. So if all you care about is number go up, then this might be the build for you. This build also removes Count the Odds and Keep It Rolling, which does mitigate some of the RNG feelings you might get from using Roll the Bones, as well as the need to remember all the extra rules about buff procs and extensions of things. You'll also gain access to a few defensives and self-healing passives that you might not normally take, such as Nimble Fingers, Iron Stomach, and Deadened Nerves, all of which can make Outlaw even harder to kill than it usually is. For cons, you will end up sacrificing a small bit of utility and mobility to use this build, as our pathing requires us to omit the improved Sprint, Fleet-Footed, and Shadow Step nodes. This also results in us losing both evasion and access to Numbing Poison, both of which can be very useful in various situations on certain fixed weeks for dungeons. This build also requires the usage of Shadow Dance, a surprisingly divisive cooldown amongst Outlaw players. Lastly, this build can feel like a feast or famine sort of rotation, as our talents Audacity, Hidden Opportunity, and Fan the Hammer have excellent synergy, but not getting those procs can feel really bad. First, we'll get into stat weights, and this is honestly a kinda moot point that I don't feel needs to be brought up that often, but it's a question that gets asked really often. The best thing you can do for yourself is to just sim all the gear you acquire via the TOPGEAR method on RAIDBOTS, as stat weights can be very misleading or volatile based on your current item level and gear loadout. A general guideline you'll want to keep in mind though when you're gearing out your Outlaw Rogue is to just remember that agility is always your most valuable stat. So even with less than ideal secondary stats, you may find that a new piece of gear is still likely to be an upgrade. You will also want to consider that even if the DPS gain is minimal, by increasing your item level on your gear, you are gaining more stamina and more armor, which then results in less chances of you dying, and dead DPS do 0 DPS. For secondary stats, however, you will likely find that Critical Strike, followed by Versatility, will be the stats you'll want to look out for. Mastery isn't nearly as bad as it used to be either, and it's still fairly better than Haste, so just keep that in mind that Haste likely isn't going to be your friend, though you might want just a little bit on your gear. Again, use the TOPGEAR loadout and see what gear is giving you the most gains. Now, let's bring the talent loadout back on screen so we can go over our pathing choices, starting with the class tree. This is another build with only one capstone, as we're focusing on the subtlety side of things with Shadow Dance. Shadow Dance is a flat 1-minute cooldown that is not modified by Restless Blades, so it's not nearly as invasive as a lot of the players might assume it could be. We will be grabbing various midway perks from both the Assassination and Outlaw portions of the tree though, by using the third column talent rows to sneak our way to some forking paths at the Deadened Nerves passive. This allows us to reach Vigor for extra energy pool and regeneration rate, Lethality for critical damage boost of 20% to our combo point generators, as well as a flat 2% crit chance buff to all abilities, and the ever-amazing Acrobatic Strikes, which gives us extra range for hitting more targets via Blade Flurry, as well as being able to skirt our way around damaging mechanics while still hitting our target. As usual, we'll be grabbing Deeper Stratagem on the main tree, as well as Devious Stratagem on the Spec tree, to increase our combo point pool to 7 and to increase our finisher damage boost by 10%. For the Spec tree, we'll be taking both Hidden Opportunity and Greenskin's Wickers as our capstone talents. While Greenskin's Wickers is a potent talent, giving a 200% boost to our next pistol shot as long as we spend at least 5 combo points on a Between the Eyes, it's really the various ambush talents and a different pistol shot talent that make this build come to life. Just above Greenskins is Fan the Hammer, which causes your Sinister Strike extra hits to give multiple stacks of the Opportunity buff. Your pistol shots will then consume up to 3 charges of Opportunity to rattle off 3 pistol shots in rapid succession. Not only are each of these pistol shots buffed by the Quick Draw talent, which increases their damage by 20% and gives them 1 additional combo point per hit, but they also work with Blade Flurry. On top of all this, the real feedback loop of this build will come into play: Audacity and Hidden Opportunity. The Audacity passive causes your opportunity procs to have a 35% chance to make your next ambush usable outside of stealth. This chance is increased by anything that buffs your Sinister Strike proc chance, which includes the 5% boost we gain from Weapon Master and the 25% chance boost from the Skull and Crossbones Roll the Bones buff. Meaning every time you blast off those 3 pistol shots from Fan the Hammer, they each have up to a 65% chance of making your next ambush usable out of stealth depending on your Roll the Bones buff. Even if you didn't roll Skull and Crossbones, you still have a 40% chance per pistol shot that goes off, so it's extremely likely to get that ambush effect from Audacity. Now, Ambush is quite a strong generator. It does an impressive amount of damage and generates an additional combo point for a total of 3 per hit, thanks to the improved Ambush talent on the main tree. But here's where Hidden Opportunity comes into play. When talented into Hidden Opportunity, your ambushes now have a chance to proc an extra hit. And despite the tooltip for Fan the Hammer not saying it, these double hits from Ambush will in fact trigger the opportunity stacks from Fan the Hammer. This means you have a feedback loop of casting Ambush or Sinister Strike until you get some opportunity procs, which you get multiple of with Fan the Hammer, then you blast off a pistol shot which shoots 3 times, which can then proc the ambush usable out of stealth from Audacity, which can then double hit and give you those stacks of Fan the Hammer back again. This is why Shadow Dance becomes such an important move, as you have 6 seconds to cast Ambush, hopefully getting some more of those Fan the Hammer stacks if you need them. As an added way of getting more time to use Ambush, we do also talent into Subterfuge, which allows stealth-based moves to be used for 3 seconds after leaving stealth or coming off of Vanish, a move we use offensively as needed. Ideally, you'll get the chance to re-stealth between pulls in your dungeons, helping to maximize the potential usage of your Subterfuge passive. Now, I suppose we can discuss your hypothetical opener, as a lot of folks tend to want to know this. Since this is a Mythic Plus related video, your opener won't necessarily always be the same, since you keep active buffs like Roll the Bones and Slice and Dice between pulls as you move from pack to pack. So this is going to be under the assumption that you have all your cooldowns available and no buffs are currently active. Starting from stealth, you'll first cast Adrenaline Rush, followed by Roll the Bones and putting Tricks of the Trade on your tank. If there's more than one target to fight, then you'll cast Blade Flurry. This is because, since you're running Subterfuge, you'll have a total of 3 GCDs for stealth-based moves once you leave stealth, so even with Flurry taking up one of those 3, it is more damage for you to Flurry first, that way your remaining ambushes can cleave. Speaking of ambush, that is what you'll cast next, and if you're lucky you'll get a double hit, which will let you cast Between the Eyes immediately since you should be at full combo points. If you didn't, then keep generating combo points until you reach 7 to use your first Between the Eyes. From there, the rotation can go all over the place, as well as how many combo points to use for your finishers, as by luck of your procs or what's available and what Roll the Bones buffs you have, you could already be in a pistol shot ambush feedback loop, or you might be just having a dry spell and are stuck casting Sinister Strike over and over and praying for a decent proc to come your way. Here's where your priorities become more important as to what moves you should be using and when. If you have an Audacity proc, Shadow Dance is active, or Subterfuge is active, Ambush is your highest priority combo point generator to use. Pistol Shot is only used if you have stacks of opportunity and Audacity is not available to use. Even if it means wasting some combo points, it is actually more beneficial to use those opportunity procs to try and get your Audacity streak going. So while this might feel kinda dirty to do, it's currently sounding like the highest throughput way of playing this build, just making sure you use those opportunity procs even if you're at like 4 or 5 combo points. Shadow Dance, as a side note, does kind of throw a kink into how and when you use all this stuff, because if you do reach 6 stacks of opportunity while you're in Shadow Dance, or your opportunity procs are about to fall off because they are on a timer, you will want to hit Pistol Shot at least once so you don't accidentally overcap on opportunity stacks or lose them entirely, depending on which of the 2 situations you're in. Lastly, the lowly Sinister Strike is your fallback in case none of these situations are true. So just hope you get some good Sinister Strike procs so you can get back into the comfort zone of the Opportunity Audacity feedback loop. Now, seeing as it's a Capstone cooldown, you would think there was some super secret use to the evil Shadow Dance, right? Not so much. You actually only use Shadow Dance if you aren't currently in the Audacity Opportunity feedback loop, which means you might not necessarily use it exactly on cooldown all the time. When that time does come though, make sure you're low on combo points, and that Between the Eyes won't need to be refreshed during your Shadow Dance, and you'll want to cast Ambush as your first attack when you get in Dance. From there, you can hopefully get tons of opportunity stacks and the rotation can smooth itself out again. Since Vanish also allows you to trigger Subterfuge, which means extra ambush casts, which means also more chances to proc opportunity, you just want to make sure you don't have the Audacity proc currently active and that you have 3 or less stacks of opportunity. This again means you likely won't use it on cooldown every single time, which may take your brain a bit to get used to since Outlaw has kind of always been known as the send everything all the time sort of spec when it comes to cooldowns. Lastly, a quick addendum on the Roll the Bones priorities for this build. While there is still some ongoing theory crafting for the Dance Hidden Opportunity build, it is very likely there are going to be some changes to which buffs you want to hold or not hold in general. Skull and Crossbones is a massive boon to this rotation, as it's a 25% increased chance for both Ambush and Sinister Strike to trigger your opportunity procs, which is the core feedback loop of this whole build. Broadsides, of course, is extra combo points per combo point generator and combo point generator damage, so that is extremely potent too. True Bearing, on the other hand, becomes a lot less enticing, as the only meaningful abilities it's going to affect are Between the Eyes and Adrenaline Rush, neither of which play a key part in how this build operates outside of always using them when they're available, basically. Ruthless Precision is a crit chance boost, which is always nice, but not impactful to how the build works either. Lastly, and leastly, if that's a word, are Grand Melee and Buried Treasure, both of which are really underwhelming and sometimes completely useless, because I've ended dungeons with 15 minutes of Slice and Dice active. Hooray! So in short, for single buffs, you'll likely only want to hold on to Skull and Crossbones or Broadsides. For any times that you roll 2 buffs, you should be reasonably fine keeping any pair of 2 buffs other than Grand Melee and Buried Treasure, though I strongly recommend keeping an eye on the Ravenhold Discord, as the Theory Crafters over there have been working on Roll the Bones priorities for some of these builds. All in all, I guess as a recap, this build can feel pretty good if you're consistently in the Audacity feedback loop, but when you're out of it, it can feel pretty rough. Definitely what I've come to consider a feast or famine type of rotation, which I personally don't care very much for. It really can do some great damage though, but that also comes with the sacrifice of multiple movement effects, such as losing Shadow Step and improved Sprint. Oh, and the fact that for some reason Grappling Hook breaks Subterfuge right now and it's a bug and it's really annoying, so make sure you report it until they fix it. Hopefully by the time this video comes up they'll have already fixed it, because that's usually how this goes. Anyways, between Shadow Dance and Vanish, you do have extra ways to force your way back into the feedback loop, which makes this build so fun and potent. So if you've been curious about it, then I hope this video will help give you some insight in how it works. While it might not be my favorite choice, it's definitely garnered a large amount of users and keys, so the performance is definitely there. If this video was helpful to you, please consider leaving a like or a comment, and if you're new to the channel, then I'd like to welcome you and to consider subscribing. I have plenty of other build videos that I'm working on, as well as dungeon videos and plenty of other things going on, so hopefully the future and prior videos will prove useful to you. As always, my appreciation and gratitude to all my viewers, subscribers, patrons over on Patreon, and Twitch subs. You folks all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so very much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.